The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. It's your midweek fix for racing news and information. Brought to you by the Championship Racing Network. Now let's head trackside to join your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson.
Welcome into the latest edition of Crossed Flags. I'm Steve West. That's Matt Nicholson. Behind the scenes, producer John, producer Molly also helping us out. We appreciate them. We appreciate you as well for being a part of this. And of course, you know, if you haven't already, subscribe down below, comment as you will. We do appreciate all of those. And if you have already subscribed, hey, thanks a lot. We do appreciate it. Let your friends know about it. We're still just this close to 175. Had a kind of a landmark show because if you think about it, 1 week ago or last week, not quite 1 week ago, we did, I think, the longest podcast we've ever done, a little over an hour. And then we did the longest show that we had ever done over the weekend, 3 hours long. So we're hoping not to break those records today. But it is Tuesday as we record this, day after President's Day. And wow, did a lot happen over President's Day weekend. You think about some of the people that passed away. Robert Duvall, which is just a crying shame because such a great actor, 95 years old. Right Reverend Jesse Jackson passes away at 84. We'll talk about another one that really affects us here in the state of Alabama coming up here a little bit later on in the show. It also affects us, Matt and I, because we are very involved out at this particular facility. So a lot of changes happening at tracks. I mean, think about it. Over the weekend, we mentioned the fact that Brian Crichton's really no longer at Talladega Superspeedway and now a change at Barber Motorsports Park.
Yeah.
What the heck, man? All right. Well, let's get into the business here. Season's in. Season's underway. Daytona 500. Overall, let's go beginning to end first and foremost here. Let's give a big 30,000-foot overview of the whole thing. Thoughts on the season opener at Daytona? And pick any of the three races. What stuck out to you?
I'll go all three.
Okay.
Based off of what I said I was going to do now with my grading system. Truck race, I'm going to give a C+ to.
Okay.
From the simple fact of some of the unnecessary level of aggressiveness so early. There was a lot of that.
I would ask this question, though, because this seems to be a fairly normal thing for the truckers. Were we really expecting them to not be aggressive?
Towards the early part of the race, yes. The latter part of the race, no, because pay windows open at the latter part of the race.
Sure. But, I will say this, it's part of the attraction for some people to the truck series is the fact that they pretty much get aggressive from the drop of the green flag at the beginning of the race. And we can question the sanity of it at a place like a Daytona or a Talladega, but still, that's pretty much what we expect, isn't it?
Yeah, it's what you expect. I mean, and that's from the simple fact of some that don't know the limitations of how to be aggressive with the trucks.
Right.
That's where the C grade comes in at. Now, if you take away that right there, trucks are rated a flat A because of the 4-wide finish that come to one.
Sure.
I give it a flat A on that one.
Okay.
The
O'Reilly Auto Parts Series.
O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. I'm gonna grade it a B+. Just from the simple fact of nobody wanted to gang up and get by Austin Hill.
Yeah, it does seem like whenever Austin is out front, the rest of the field seems to just give up. They're like, well, fait accompli, he's the winner.
When there were plenty, in my opinion, I'm going to call them plenty of tag team opportunities that could have happened, and it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Cup race, I'm going to give a B+ to, and here's where the points were deducted from that ridiculous part in stage 3 of when everybody got 3 wide trying to save fuel, and they were running laps in miles per hour of 172 to 173.
Right.
That's inexcusable.
You and I have been there long enough to have seen what, three different generations of these stock cars.
Yes.
And
I've
one
seen
of the okay, and one of the things that we have noted over time, and this goes back to the early parts of when I started doing PA. So you go back 2007 to really almost all the way up to this generation. We would see at varying times throughout the course of the race them just kind of ticking off laps. And what do I mean by that? I mean, they would all get in a single file. We'd have 40 to 43 cars that would end up in a lane, be it down by the double yellow line or up by the wall, whatever, all in single file, nobody stepping out of line and just logging laps. And I know that there's one major difference here. The speed that they were running. Those guys were going faster in that single file line. I get it. But it's kind of the same thing in some ways, isn't it? In the fact that we're just kind of ticking laps off, right?
Yeah, it is. It really is in kind of the same way, the same thing.
Now, I get where you're coming from in that the speeds drop way the heck down. Don't get me wrong. I understand where you're coming from there. But I'm saying in a lot of ways, there are similarities between that old style of single file, let's just log laps for a little while and not really worry about it. And whoever happens to be leading is leading. And then you go 3 or heck, we've seen it at Talladega the last, 3-4 races in a row where they can go 4 wide for as many as 20 laps. But all they're doing is looking like rush hour on the Beltway.
Yeah, it is. But it's how they're doing it. And the word I'm going to use here, how the optics of it look.
Oh, I agree.
It makes everybody think, oh, they're out there 3 wide racing this right here. No, not when you have 3 Toyotas lined up front from top to bottom, Bell, Wallace, and Heim that are top to bottom,
blocking everybody.
They're essentially road blocking everything.
Yeah, they're artificially blocking anybody from being able to make a move.
Yeah, and when you got telemetry on the leader from the data that comes through that they can pull, and the throttle percentage, you're showing 55 to 60%, and you're leading.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to make the optics of it look. They make the optics of it look like, oh, we're out here 3 wide racing at Daytona, not at 173 miles per hour. You don't. I could literally go to a Glory Road at the Hall of Fame, pull off Robert Huffman's 2004 Toyota Celica Goodies dash car, and probably turn laps faster than what they were running.
Yeah, or at the very least, easily keep up with what they were doing.
I could take a 4-cylinder and keep up with the back of the pack and no problem.
I agree. And I mean, you and I saw this again. This was it last year or was it late 2004? Had that situation where, well, it was the 19 car, so it had to have been last year. It was Chase Briscoe, and he got offset from everybody else, so he's all by himself.
2024 when he was in the 14 car. I know exactly what you're talking
with the 14 car. Okay, for some reason I had it in mind that it was a 19 car. He's out there all by himself. He's a half a lap behind the lead pack, and they're doing that gas saving thing, and he's got it floored, and by himself, he's going faster than the lead draft.
Yeah,
that's the situation that we're talking about.
Because I vividly recall, because I was doing photography that race. It was the first race that they took my scoring pylon down.
Yeah.
Which is still baffling to me. But because I was standing at the turn 1, I was in the turn 1 and 2 photo tower. And I was I was swapping camera batteries out, and I thought, wait a minute, I want to see something here. So I pulled a stopwatch out and timed the pack 1 lap and turned around and timed Chase Briscoe the second lap. And I recall sending you the message with the exact words, "We got a problem. Briscoe is faster than the pack."
And the funny thing is that I'm up there in the PA booth and we've got monitors around. Both you and producer John know this. We've got monitors up there which allow us to keep varying camera views, number one, but number two is the whole scoring situation where we can actually see the lap times that the drivers are turning. And as you were doing that, as you were timing, I was looking at it too. Because again, I've noted this. I'm a Chase Briscoe fan. He's the last driver of that number 14 car, which was the last car driven by Tony Stewart. And I'm sitting there looking at the board, and I'm looking at what Chase Briscoe's doing, and I'm looking at what the leaders are doing, and I'm thinking to myself, right about the time you sent that text, I'm looking at it going, Chase Briscoe's going faster than they are, all by himself.
He was.
So you and I were right there. We were thinking the same thing at the same time.
Yeah, he was about 0.3 of a second faster than the pack was.
Yeah,
and that's a lot at Talladega.
It was weirdly obvious, even though he was by himself. It was weirdly obvious. My question to be would be this though: if we didn't know the telemetry, okay, in other words, if Fox, Amazon Prime, TNT, NBC, whatever, pick your network, if they didn't have access to the telemetry, would we really know the difference? Or would we just look at it and go, wow, they're going 3-wide racing and not really care?
Anybody with a naked eye, well, let me back up. Anybody that knows what they're looking at with a naked eye would be able to tell they're not full throttle. Mm-hmm. But you're what I will call your average Joe, new fan to a sport, being there their first time, they're going, wow, look at this.
Yeah. I mean, you and I have talked about it. The 3-wide, 4-wide spectacle that we can see at a Daytona or a Talladega, on the surface, it's impressive.
Yeah, and then we're going to sit up there, and I'm going to give a similar scenario back in, it was 2013, 14, something like that. Forgive my choir back in the background.
Yeah.
When they made the rule change up in the booth, when they made the rule change mid-practice session, and I'm sitting there going, we're sitting there going, no. They're not going to go slower. They're about to go faster.
They're going to punch a bigger hole in there, and that
means
the
huge hole in the air.
That much more important.
Yeah, and then I'm sitting there, and we're sitting there like it's a similar scenario. Like we want to sit up there and beat our heads through the wall, going, "What are they doing? What are they doing? What are they doing?" This is a similar scenario of that.
Now,
what are they doing?
NASCAR has said over the last couple of days that they're looking into it. They're talking with the people in the garage. They're trying to figure out how they can fix this. Denny Hamlin has an idea. We're going to talk about it on the big show a little bit more on Saturday. But basically, Denny Hamlin's idea is end plate racing. Whether it is the restrictor plate or the tapered spacer plate, he effectively is saying, hey, let's put handling back into the aspect of it, and let's make the cars go faster, much faster, to the point where it might edge on the driver being uncomfortable behind the wheel.
And he's not wrong.
Okay.
He's absolutely not wrong, because back in 87, 88, that's what you saw at Daytona. That's what you saw at Talladega. Unrestricted driving, to where you having to drive into the corner and you're having to lift.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these
handling is a factor.
Yeah, these parachute cars that they have, they've got so much drag in them that, I'll say this before I get too technical here. They will find a way to gear these cars down so low that they could still be kept in a pack in some shape, form, or fashion.
So
like a ratio down in the 200s.
Yeah, that seems to be the magic number that they're really, really scared of over at NASCAR. But I asked this, and you and I have seen these cars. We've seen the cutaway cars from Larry McReynolds on Fox coverage. The number of flaps and different fins and all these little things that NASCAR is putting on these cars nowadays to try and keep them from going airborne. I mean, at some point in time, we're going to have to figure out a happy medium here, because if left to their own devices, and this is a guesstimation on your part because this is the new generation of car. But previously, for example, we saw Rusty Wallace take the old Blue Deuce and they ripped the restrictor plate off, and he went around doing about the better part of 225 at a Talladega test.
I remember the number. His top speed he hit was 231.
Okay, there you go. Are these cars capable of doing that?
Yes and no.
Okay.
The yes being with the horsepower being like it is, because I could guarantee you they would put an engine in the car that would be, if they went with an unrestricted engine in the car, it would not crack 600.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't. I mean, they don't now, but still.
They would. Well, they run the 510, 510 at Talladega and Daytona and Atlanta.
Yeah,
670 everywhere else, 750 short tracks and road courses now. Okay,
right.
You wouldn't crack 600, but if you put it at 600, I would safely probably say that you could probably see 210 to 215 sustained.
Okay.
The no part being from all of the confounded aerodynamic characteristics of the car that they have on it. Basically that you and I have looked at within literal inches of it. See, they got a lot of optics with this car. You sit there and think that all I say of this dark spoiler, they only have a 4-inch spoiler. Incorrect. They have an 8-inch spoiler because it's double up with clear lexing.
Yep.
Okay. That's what creates the drag on the car so much.
Right.
Now, if you give them some leeway to lay that spoiler back some, you could possibly see 220, possibly.
All right. So let's go back to the comfort zone where we were talking about NASCAR's comfort seemingly being right around 200. If we allow them to go 215 to 220, let's say, and we get into that situation where a car ends up getting turned, and this goes back to all those flaps that we were talking about that are being shown as far as this year and all those fins that are on the top and everything. Is there a way to keep the car from going airborne?
With this car and as many flaps as you see on that car, and every single one of them, and I'll go back to the duels on Thursday night when Bubba Wallace got turned to the inside and every single flap deployed on that car. Roof flaps, hood flaps, A-post flaps, and the diffuser flap deployed.
Right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that car would stay on the ground.
Okay.
Now, one thing they've got to realize, if you look at from today's era versus I'm gonna say the era of the late 80s, early 90s, and even in the era when they were doing the pack qualifying, and you would see these absolute blistering speeds laid down. That magic number of 200, let's just dub it down, that magic number of 200, what was happening in the stands when that magic number of 200 was constantly being achieved? Every single seat was occupied.
Yeah, they were excited about it.
Every single
had
seat
the
was
fans'
occupied.
attention.
Exactly. And then when the first few rounds of qualifying that were done on single car with the car tomorrow, that when it come out and you would have the speeds from one race to the other, the speeds that race, the qualifying was 192, 193, somewhere in that range. And then they come back to Talladega with a car tomorrow. and you cannot crack 180.
Yeah, right.
That is inexcusable.
Yeah, you think about it, and NASCAR finally puts out a figure population-wise. Take a page out of Formula One, by the way, saying that there were about 450,000 people that hit the turnstiles over the course of the weekend. So the whole speed week, I guess, is basically what they're talking about. Good number, don't get me wrong. But we want to see speed. How do we know this? Look at the qualification day at Indianapolis, for example, where we know, you and I both, we've seen it, we've watched it, not in person, but certainly on television. It's something I'd like to see in person, is to see those guys qualify at 230 miles per hour plus. That is dangerous. We know it, but man, is it a spectacle to watch. Formula One is much the same way. We're curious how 1/10 of 1 second is going to make a difference from first to, heck, maybe as low as 10th place. It's all about getting as much speed out of the car as possible. You and I can qualify these cars. I know you can. You're a qualified driver. I technically could qualify a car at Daytona or Talladega as well, because all I got to do is get that car into high gear and mash the accelerator and turn the wheel. And you and I have talked about how easy it is. A lot of drivers have been steering that car with one hand. If they can do it with one hand, I should be able to do it with two.
Yeah, it's almost at the point where it's too easy. And
so to back up what Denny says, we need to make this tougher. We need to make the drivers a little more uncomfortable.
You make it uncomfortable by putting narrower tires in the car.
Okay, so there's that, and taking off the plate / spacer,
or putting a 750 horsepower engine in the car.
Oh, that'd do it.
Put the 750 in the car. If you have to put a tapered spacer on it, put an 1 inch and 3/16 taper spacer on it. I don't know the magic number of what it would be, but if you have to do that, put the biggest tapered spacer that you could physically put on the engine.
Yeah, don't drop it down so much to the point where you are limiting them to under 200 miles per hour. In other words,
if they want to fix it, yeah, make them uncomfortable. Go old school, elbows up, drive the car, because if you can, I'll say it this way: if iRacing can basically mimic and get a setup for Echo Park Speedway done, if they can get the setup and the layout done for the Chicago street course that was done, and if they can accomplish other things that have been done, put a sim setup of that nature onto iRacing, see what it translates to, and then if it translated into something like this is achievable, put them on the track.
Try it, see what happens.
Because look what has happened to Echo Park in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Look what's happened. That is arguably, without a shadow of a doubt, the most entertaining race of the year.
Agreed.
No doubt.
I mean, it goes back to that question about the 1.5 mile intermediate tracks and the way that they have got things set up at Atlanta. It's really, really good. I mean, for a while it was Kansas, but I think Atlanta certainly rivals it if it hasn't beaten Kansas out. And that's saying something, because Kansas is still eminently entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, make the cars. Now, if they did that, I would not be object whatsoever to going, and I'm going to use Talladega for an example. I would not be object going to one race that is 500 miles and doing one 400-mile race. I wouldn't be object to it. Okay?
I could agree with that.
Make it to the point to where I want to sit at the entry point to turn one.
Okay.
Make it to where I want to see one of those cars barreling off into 33 degrees of banking at 230 plus at the end of the straightaway. Make it to where I want to hear a throttle start being cracked and breathe a good 300 yards before the entry point of the turn, because you've got to set the car, or you're going to fly off of turn one and be laying in downtown Munford. Make it to that point.
Yeah, I follow you.
Make it to where I want to be at the end of the Alabama Gang super stretch on the photo tower and hear 8 cylinders screaming at me at 8,400 RPMs. And it sounds like, oh my goodness, what is that coming? And if you blink your eyes, you're going to miss the car.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right. And but here's the thing, and we'll throw a bit of a caution flag, which when we look back at Daytona, I can honestly say that I give kudos to NASCAR for understanding two things that were going to happen on Sunday. Number one, that rain's coming, so they shifted the race an hour earlier. Good job. That was finally you were thinking. Secondly, on the last lap, and producer John's about to get this picture up there of them coming to the white flag, or them coming to the checkered flag, actually. But this picture that you're about to see was actually the second incident on the final lap. There was an incident that happened at the beginning of that lap, and I immediately said, here comes the yellow, and was shocked that the yellow didn't get automatically hit, because you and I have seen it way too many times. They have such a hair trigger on that caution, but they kept the yellow in the pocket when the thing happened at the beginning of this lap, and they kept the yellow in the pocket in this situation right here, where I don't know whether it was just a bad move on the part of Riley Herbst, bad advice from the spotter, whatever it was, but for him to jump up there and get in front of Brad Keselowski at a bad point in time where he gets turned and he's about to come back across and take out that 9 car that you see right there of Chase Elliott, ruining his chance of maybe rallying back and getting a win, and plus all the other cars that you see back there that go out too. The only question I have is, take that situation right there, and I don't think we'd have that exact situation, but let's take that situation right there, put those cars at 220 to 230 miles per hour that you were talking about. What is the end result if we have this situation at that speed?
If you got that situation at that speed at 220, 230, the optics of drafting is going to be at a lot higher notice. I know I said that in a very, very technical way, but if that's at 220 or 230 and Keselowski is 2 foot further behind,
okay,
Riley Herbst wins that race.
So if he could have pulled off the move successfully, Riley Herbst is your winner.
If he could have pulled that move off successfully, even under this right here, Riley Herbst wins the race, because Riley Herbst had a substantial level of momentum that was higher than Chase Elliott and Tyler Reddick.
Yeah. But instead, what we got was him bouncing off of Keselowski on the wall and bouncing into Chase Elliott. What happens if that's the scenario that happens at 220 to 230?
Cars don't fly. They'll still be on the ground.
Okay. There's enough aero stuff to keep them from doing that. You're convinced of that.
Yeah, there's so much aero stuff on this car that it stays on the ground.
Okay. And I think that's probably the biggest point of it. Yep. But all right, let's go back to that situation where I'm talking about that. The fact that NASCAR did not throw the yellow at either end of that final lap, as much as I'm willing to criticize NASCAR for when they make a mistake, this was not a mistake. This was exactly what you and I have been calling for allow these races to play out.
Yes, and if the move hadn't have been a fraction too late, it would have been a 3 wide finish for the 500.
Yeah, it would
There's
have
no ifs,
been.
ands, or buts about it.
Yeah,
But it's almost like somebody was listening when last year when I described the scenario of how they need to do it on a white flag lap of sectoring off the racetrack. If you're inside of this sector or outside of this sector, if you're outside of that sector, don't throw it. If you're inside of that sector, throw it out of precaution. They were outside of that sector and they held it. But if you go back and look, the cars stayed moving. Nobody come to a dead stop.
True.
Everybody stayed moving.
If somebody had just passed the start finish, say at the end of the tri-oval, if somebody had come to a rest right there and they couldn't get the car started, couldn't get it moving, it's blocking the track. I get it. But all of these cars got to move. Yes, there was a lot of debris there. If you watch the post-race celebration with Tyler Reddick, he's navigating a debris field from that accident at the beginning of that turn. But nobody was stopped. They all were able to leave. You have a clear track.
Everybody was out of bounds.
Yeah, let it go. And they did, to their credit.
Yes, if somebody is in bounds, yeah, I get it.
Sure.
If they're out of bounds, let it go.
Exactly.
And that's what they did. They let it go.
Yep. To their credit. And, again, you and I are going to be critical when we have to be. You and I are going to give praise when it's deserved. And in this case, it was deserved.
Whoever was in race control and had their hand on the button, good job of taking your hand off of the button when the white rag got put in the air.
Exactly. Then there was something else that you noticed. And we're going to show you, through producer John, a series of logos of teams. And the first one that's going to come up is the team that won Friday night. We know the driver that won. It was Chandler Smith. Chandler Smith drives for this team right here. Front Row Motorsports. Congratulations to them. We know that they can build good speedway stuff. We've seen that. We know it. And they're doing it in the truck series. And congratulations to Chandler Smith. Then you go to Saturday. And Saturday, the winner of the race, shock among shocks, not really, is Austin Hill. You and I mentioned it at the beginning of this particular podcast. Some reason, some way, shape, or form, Austin Hill gets out front. Everybody else seems to quit. But Austin Hill drives for Richard Racing.
Yep.
And then we move to Sunday, and Sunday's Daytona 500. We pointed to the car, showed it to you in that still shot there, down at the bottom, just below Chase Elliott. Driver of the number 45, Tyler Reddick, who drives for 2311 Racing. And I have to admit, I hadn't thought about it until you brought this up. It is interesting to note what these three teams, other than winning Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at Daytona, the other thing that those three teams have in common.
The thing that those three teams have in common is those were the three primary teams involved in the antitrust lawsuit.
That's just oddly poetic in some way, isn't it?
It was almost in a way of poetic justice.
Yeah. And on top of that, you and I talked about it on Saturday morning, Tony Stewart doing his pre-weekend media blitz and having the question asked by Fox Sports' Bob Pockris, have you seen Steve O'Donnell? And he just kind of gets this sly grin on his face and says, nope, haven't had the pleasure. And if we do, we may talk. And if we don't, it's not going to bother me. I'm basically going to go about my duties. Same situation. It's just kind of funny. I can't think of a better way to put it. It's kind of funny.
It passed that. It's absolutely past that. But I know it kind of had to irk Jim France to walk into victory lane and shake Michael Jordan's hand post race.
Yeah. By the way, as many kudos as I'd like to hand out, there's one that I would really like to look at and go, you guys are morons. And it's not to NASCAR. It is to the one network that is supposed to be the ultimate in sports. They call themselves the worldwide leader in sports. Yeah, ESPN.
I know where you're going with this.
The old entertainment and sports programming network.
Yep.
I don't know as they would have mentioned the Daytona 500 other than to say, oh, by the way, Tyler Reddick won. I don't think they would have given it half as much coverage if it hadn't been Michael Jordan's owned team. Yep. But they did. I don't know what year they're in when it comes to the NASCAR Cup Series, but when they talk about how the Daytona 500 is the spectacle of the Sprint Cup Series, you're about a decade past where we are. You guys are like in 2016. Wake up. We're in 2026, boys. Since it was the Sprint Cup, it was the Monster Energy Cup. And oh, by the way, right about, what was it, 2020? They finally got rid of the title sponsorship in the Cup Series, and it became that tiered sponsorship where we have 4 premier sponsors, and then we have the lesser ones. Where you been, ESPN? Pardon my dog, who likes to throw things around. Where you been, ESPN? You guys are supposed to be the worldwide leader in sports. This just shows how little NASCAR means to you. But this is a bad move, because if you are supposed to be the worldwide leader in sports, cover them all and get it right.
I agree. I do agree.
That's why we have fact checkers, boys and girls. Finally, and we'll do this again on Saturday because it deserves it, we have to report the passing of a cornerstone in the state of Alabama. The name Barber, if you have been in the state of Alabama for any length of time whatsoever, should mean big things to you. For you, I know this, and for me, I'm older than you are. I grew up, and in going to school, your school lunches and everything, you would get a carton of milk. And that carton of milk, at least at my schools, was Barber Dairies. Every single time. And it was good. It was tasty. And it was started by George Barber Sr. way, way back in the early 1930s. I mean, think about it. Beginning of the Depression. He has a son, George Barber Jr. And George followed his father into the Barber Dairy situation. He was the chairman of it until he decided to sell it off to a company called Dean Foods in the early 2000s. Because George was interested in things other than the dairy. He was a racer. He was an avid fan of motorcycles, started a collection at a pretty young age, and made a pretty good amount of money of his own in real estate and real estate development. Unfortunately, George Barber passed away just yesterday, overnight, last night, really, as we record this on Tuesday the 17th. George Barber was 85 years old. And that motorcycle collection that I was referring to turned into the Guinness Book of World Records largest motorcycle collection in the world that you can go see if you go to Barber Motorsports Park in the Barber Motorcycle Museum. My dad passed away in 2008. The year before he passed away, he came down here and we had the chance to go through it. And the collection has grown since then. Obviously, it's almost 20 years. We went through that museum, and as we were getting ready to leave, we would note that there were cars interspersed amongst that. And that is expanded too. I've seen pictures, but I haven't gone back through it because I want to remember that museum as going through it with my dad. It's a personal thing, but it's still one of those things that I do.
Right.
But the car collection has grown as well. But as we were getting ready to leave, my father wanted to stop by the restroom. Okay. I was standing on the bridge at the bottom level of the main museum, and I'm looking down at what is the garage level. And what I see is a red Corvette, which otherwise wouldn't move the needle a whole lot. until I really started looking at this Corvette, and I'm seeing the Monroney sticker sitting on the windshield still. And for those of you that don't know what a Monroney sticker is, basically it's the price and the details of all the options that said car has. So when I see the sticker still on it, and remember, this is 2007. This isn't a 2007 Corvette. It's probably 15-year-old-ish Corvette by that point in time. And the plastic is still on the seats. And now I'm really starting to pay very close attention to this. And about that time, we had somebody from the museum walk over and say, folks, we're about ready to close. And I said, well, can I ask you a question real quick? And he said, sure. I said, okay, what are you guys doing down here on this bottom floor? And he said, well, they bring the motorcycles and sometimes some of the cars that George Barber has collected over his life, and they bring them in there to do some work on it. Maybe it's just as small as detailing it. Maybe they have to do a major overhaul because they got a motorcycle in or a car in that just needs a whole lot of work done to it, but they're working on it to get it presentable. And he said, that car right there is one of the first Corvette ZR1s to roll off the showroom or roll off the line in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And there was a story behind that, in that George Barber, and I don't know whether you could at that point in time, but George Barber wasn't going to do it anyway. George Barber met the delivery truck at the dealership where he ordered it. They drove it off the transporter onto a trailer, and it sat in his collection with less than 10 miles on it. The 10 miles were done at the factory just to make sure that everything was set. That was it. That was all. And that was George Barber's one of the first first Corvette ZR1s. And they had it in there because they were going to do a detail job on it. That was it. That's the kind of stuff that I remember. And you think about the fact that he spent that much of his own money on that piece of land out there on the very, very eastern part of the city of Birmingham, right up against the Leeds area. Spent his own money to build a world-class FIA Class 2 race facility that Indycar said, oh, this would be a neat place to test. So they tested there in 2009 or 7, and they tested there again in 2009 and said, we ought to do a race here. And now that facility is considered, for golfers, they'll know this reference, the Augusta of the motorsports world. This is what he's done. He was a very charitable man, gave money, millions of dollars, to charities in and around the state of Alabama. George Barber is going to be, you want to talk about missed. I can't, saying he's going to be missed seems like an understatement.
For sure.
It is a shame. I hate it. And I get it. It's what they call the circle of life. We mentioned Jesse Jackson, Robert Duvall earlier on. Robert Duvall was 95. Jesse Jackson was 84. George Barber is 85. Just had his 85th birthday back in September. But I get it. Again, it's the circle of life. But man, some of these just hurt worse than others. And this one hurts. Even if you never met him, even if you didn't know him, George Barber probably affected your life, and the Barber family probably affected your life in ways that you can't even count at this point in time if you've been in the state of Alabama for any length of time at all.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. So whoever, I would say, his legacy is cemented firmly at that racetrack for what it started at and now what it's evolved into. But to basically, I'm not going to say cement it even further. Whatever way you want to categorize it is into cementing that, getting that legacy even more firm.
Right.
Considering that I've seen it start the expansion for the F1 course.
I'd love to see that. I would
start
really
the expansion for the F1 course.
You know this. You know, I can say I literally am honored to be one of the PA announcers out at Talladega Superspeedway, and I am truly, truly honored to be able to say that I am the latest PA voice for what was Zoom Motorsports, which is the race promoters for IndyCar weekend at Barber Motorsports Park. And I am thrilled to death to be able to do it because it is such a very, very cool facility to be able to do it at both of the premier motorsports facilities here in the state of Alabama is amazing. I never thought I was going to do this when I got into this business many, many years ago. I can fully expect that we're going to have several honorings of George Barber, and I just hope that I get the chance to read any one of them because I would be honored to be able to read that, even if it was just to the people within the facility. It doesn't have to go over the Indianapolis radio network or Fox or whatever network happens to be carrying the coverage. I want to be a part of it because he just meant so much throughout the course of my life. And again, to many, many Alabamians who have been here for any number of years, that name will mean a lot. So George Barber, you'll be missed. Our thoughts and our prayers go out to the family and friends of George Barber. But no, your legacy is secure and rock solid. No doubt about it.
No doubt.
All right. We wrap this one up. Once again, thanks to producer John. Thanks to producer Molly. We're going to be back with the big show. Should be the regular show. 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time, radio flagship, and all that kind of stuff going on this weekend, I think. We'll see. In the meantime, as we get prepared for Atlanta, you guys have a fantastic rest of your week. Join us for the big show this Saturday. Don't forget, subscribe down below or tell friends who have not that they should, because after all, where else are they going to get this kind of stuff? Nowhere, really. Y'all have a great day. We'll talk to you Saturday morning on the big show. Thank you for checking out this edition of Cross Flag.
You've been listening to Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. For more content like this, subscribe to CRN Live on YouTube, and you'll be set to catch the 2-hour live show every Saturday morning at 9 Eastern, 8 Central.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.